Hello, alchemists, and welcome back to another episode of Elemental Educator. Be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is episode 13. Before we dive into today, I want to share a quick prelude about our guest, Anna. Anna's story is one of resilience, passion, and unwavering commitment to education. From her unexpected journey into teaching to her innovative approach in supporting students and teachers alike, Anna embodies the spirit of the elemental educator. Get ready to be inspired by her incredible journey and valuable insights, and let the alchemy of education ignite your passion for learning.
This is the Elemental Educator, the podcast where we kindle the fires of dialogue with the alchemists of education. We're here to embark on a journey where ancient wisdom meets the contemporary world of education. On Elemental Educator, we dive into the deep waters of adaptability, feel the grounding earth of core values, ride the swift winds of change, and ignite the fiery spirit of risk-taking. Fire, earth, wind, water. This is the Elemental Educator, and now your host, Tyler Como.
All right, alchemists, welcome back to another episode of Elemental Educator. This is a banger today. This has some razzle-dazzle to it, and I can't wait to get into things with Anna. Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this podcast.
Me too. I can't wait to start unpacking everything because this is going to be a good one. I reached out to you just on social media and email and said, hey, this is cool. You want to try this? And you said, yeah, sure. Let's go for it. And now I get the cool part of getting to hear your story and unpack it. And so what led you to where you are in education right now?
Oh gosh, that's a long story, so I hope you have some time.
We have an hour, so we're good.
As far as education, it was crazy because when I was in undergrad, I actually went in for journalism. So I have my bachelor's in print journalism. I've always loved to write, and I wrote for the school newspaper and a local newspaper in Liberty City in Miami, and I loved it. But my extracurriculars somehow always led me to the education world, always led me to working with kids. Even some of my jobs here and there, I would tutor, I would help with the writing center, I would help at not summer camps, but summer school where some kids have to go to make up some English and math classes. I had some part-time jobs there, and I always just loved being around kids. They're just funny and full of life, and it just felt invigorating. I started leaning towards education, but I was so close to graduating that I was I'm not changing my major right now. If anything, I'll figure it out after. And that's what I did. I ended up, my very first stint in education was I was in between joining Teach for America or the Peace Corps or this thing called City Year, because all of them seemed so amazing to me. And I ended up going with City Year, and I'm so glad I did. And it was just such an awesome experience working at the school that we worked at, and then getting to see firsthand actually all the problems in education. Because literally, I kid you not, halfway into my City Year experience, we were supports in a classroom. So not actually teachers, but just there to support the teachers. And a teacher just walked up and left and never came back because she just quit midweek.
Wow.
And we were just standing there, my partner and I, and we were well, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. And then the principal came into the classroom shortly after, and he was this happens a lot. We just need you to figure it out until we can get a substitute in here maybe at the end of the week. And I just remember laughing and saying, I guess we're going to figure it out then. And ever since then, I was I think I really want to be a teacher. So I looked up the requirements.
That was the moment. Hey, it was somebody walking out of the class. You just made that incredible comment. What led you to make that comment? Walking out and you saying, that's it, I want to be a teacher.
I guess because we had been supporting in the classroom for a little while before then, and I enjoyed helping students get the material, especially in English class. I enjoyed helping them finally get that aha moment. And I had also been we had the opportunity in City Year to run extracurriculars during lunch, a little lunch program. So I had ran something, I think I called it Queen Bees or something. And it was an extracurricular to help girls talk about girl things and help each other be nicer to each other and just all the things. And I got to know a lot of them personally. And I love seeing that I could do both. I could help them in the classroom, just get the knowledge that they needed to understand to pass these classes. And I could also help them, to me, in the more important side of things, which is their personal life. So I think the mix of both just hit me, and I was whoa, this is something I think I really want to do. I really feel invested in this. When I saw the opportunity, I jumped at it, and I was I wonder if I could do this. And I said, like, why not? Let me try it. I've always just been to jump into something and try it anyway, figure it out later. That's just how I was raised, I think. So I figured out you need to take the test. I need to take my subject area test, professional development, and like some other test, and somehow pass them. I mean, I studied a lot, obviously, but I've never been like a really great test taker. So that's why I say somehow pass them. And then, yeah, I taught for 10 years in the classroom. I ended up getting my master's in education because I did want like some type of
Good for
formal
you.
training, since I didn't get the student teacher experience that I get so jealous of when people talk about. I didn't get none of that. I literally
Right.
just had to figure it out the first hazing year of teaching. And yeah, and then that's like a wrap. The last 10 years of my life have been dedicated to education.
So why do that? Why put yourself through that to do that for those kids?
I think it really goes back to my time in high school. And I always tell people, like, I wanted to just be the teacher that I wanted when I was in high school, or actually the teacher that I did have, thank God. I had a really rough time in high school, not just like in classes. English class was always, I was pretty good, but in math and sciences, I was struggling. I would cry a lot. I just was always frustrated, and I felt like the teachers didn't have any type of empathy towards me for not understanding the material quickly, or just there was always like a divide, like a very wide divide between student and teacher, and that bothered me. And my junior year of high school, a lot of like stuff was going on, like home life and personal life and all these things. And I remember one day, I'll never forget this day. I always talk about it. I put my head down to cry in class. And it was like 7 periods, and I just had my head down. I was zoned out. I was crying, like, the silent cry all throughout all of my classes. And out of 7 teachers, only one teacher noticed that there was like something wrong with me. And he was the only one that like pulled me aside to talk to me about it. And like, he was the only one that I felt like not invisible. I felt not invisible in his classroom. And that feeling always stuck with me. He was the reason I graduated. I know that for a fact. And I feel like he saved my life. So I think part of that came back to me when it came time to, I was seeing education kept reappearing in my life and schools and things. I wanted to be able to be that for other kids. Not necessarily saying that every kid needs like someone to like step in, right? So dramatically, so to speak, but I just wanted to be someone in a school setting where students felt like this person has my back. This person sees me as a person, and if I ever need anything, they're there and they have my back.
Your core value of being there for others, to watch others grow and thrive and succeed, and just wanting to be that genuine support for them that helps them lead to flourishment. That's an incredible value to have. That's an incredible earth to be grounded in. I think that there's so much power in your story and your motivation behind it. And it's a reason you're never going to stop doing what you're doing, because you're so heavily rooted in your experience for others because of what you went through as well. I think that's really important to note as well. But I want to jump. You said before you even got into education, it was education or the Peace Corps. Those are two very different things. Where did that dynamic come in, and what ultimately led to that decision?
I think I've just always loved to help people. Even just always loved to help people. I've always loved to hear people's stories. I think everyone has a story. Everyone deserves to have a space to share their story. Their story shapes who they are. And it's funny enough, earlier you said that the reason I became into education was because of my story, my own personal story. But I think that's the whole point of life. To me, part of it is like everyone goes through something in life. Everyone goes through things. Our experiences are all different. But what connects us is our ability to use those experiences to then maybe help other people, or just understand and be there for other people. And I think if more people looked at things that way, life would be better. But for the Peace Corps, one of my extracurriculars in college, I was like so involved in college, was alternative breaks, which means you would take a group of students and go on a volunteer or mission trip during your spring break, your winter break, or your summer break. And so I not only got the opportunity to be a participant in a few of those trips, but also then lead them. And actually, in one of the schools I taught at, like high schools that I taught at, I ran that again. And so I was able to bring my own high school students like to places like Peru and Haiti. And it was just like an
Good for
awesome
you.
experience. Yeah, I love that. That was one of my favorite parts about being a teacher. And so after being the director for that program in college, one of my college mentors was the one who told me about all these programs coming to the school to talk about what's going to happen after graduation if we wanted to join a program instead of going to work on a different career or whatnot. And so I sat there and I listened to the sessions on the Peace Corps and Teach for America and City Year, and it was hard. Like I was like, I want to do the Peace Corps. I love this idea of serving and missions and traveling too, because I love to travel. But it was a hard choice. I think part of what made me end up choosing City Year was because I was raised by a single mom. And it was just me. I don't have any siblings. While I did want to try the Peace Corps, I knew that she would have a really hard time letting me go so far away for so long, because it was about to be a 2-year commitment to start with. And I also didn't want to leave her. So I think ultimately that's why I ended up choosing like a local organization instead.
Anna, that's so powerful. Just the whole, your why, your earth, your grounded mindset, whether it would have been Peace Corps or whether it would have been education, it was rooted in wanting to support and help people around you. And what that looked like could have been different, but it would have been rooted to that same value. And regardless, I don't think either way, I don't think back on it, you would have felt like you made the wrong decision. Even if you had went the Peace Corps route, you probably would have looked back 10 years from now and said, this is so cool. I love what I'm doing, because it's rooted in your big value, which is opportunities for others and supporting others and helping others. So powerful. And it's so relieving to hear as an educator and administrator, even just a human in our world, that there's people out there that want to give that support, that want to give that extra facilitation to help guide people through their own journeys, and hopefully along the way get guidance in their own journey too. I'm sure we're all growing the same way you're growing in your role as you develop and evolve, and I'm going to grow in my role as I develop and evolve too. Now, you did say that it was the day that a teacher quit, that's when you decided that teaching was for you and you made the right decision. Is that factual? Is that actually the true moment where you said, I made the right call and I'm happy with where I'm at? Or is there some kind of aha moment along the way beyond that where you had validation for this?
I just remember that day so clearly in my mind. So I guess that's why it sticks out. I did feel very called to it in that moment. But as far as like validation, my first year of teaching was not validation. I was struggling. I thought, oh my God, what did I get myself into? This is not for me. I would cry all the time in like the faculty bathroom just because it's such a hard time, especially not having the student teacher experience and not really having any training. Like, it's crazy that you can just take the test and then be a certified teacher.
You can't do that where I'm from, just for the record. You need the practicum experience.
Oh, okay. Like here, yeah, you just take the test and then you take a few extra side classes and that's it. You're a teacher.
Wow.
And that's something that's just all the way wrong in so many for so many reasons. But also I think that administrators or the school system in general needs to add certain qualifications to become a teacher. Things like learning child psychology, basic human development. I think teaching with empathy, trauma-informed teaching.
How to deal with an angry parent.
Yes. All these things like communication, basic conflict resolution psychology, trauma-informed teaching, like all of these things would be so helpful if teachers had to learn all of these things and practice all of these things before becoming teachers. But sorry, that was a sidetrack.
No, you're so right. There are so many things, and it's true to where I went to school too. There are so many things that I look back on education and I go, oh my God, we did not learn this in university. I'm not prepared to deal with that situation.
Yeah.
And it's the lived experiences that actually help us grow and become good educators, right?
That's so true. And I always laugh at like the memes that pop up. Like the only thing teaching school taught me or education school taught me was how to write a 12-page lesson plan that I'll never use again. I'm like, that is so accurate. That is so accurate. So yeah, first year was rough. I didn't really have much validation. I was not invited back to the school the following year because I like to ruffle feathers a little bit in the sense of questioning the curriculum and questioning the way things were done. And especially as a new teacher, the veterans were looking at me like, pipe down. So it was rough, but I remember calling my mom the day that the school told me that I wasn't going to be able to come back the following year. And I was crying on the phone and I was like, Mom, I feel so dumb. Like I thought this was my dream and now maybe this is showing me that it's not for me and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to apply for other schools, blah, blah, blah. And then literally, I don't know, I think that was in May, maybe April, I'm not sure. But my birthday is in June. And 2 days before my birthday, I had packed all of the stuff from the classroom into the back seat of my car. And so the back looks like I live in my car and I'm just driving down the road and I get into this like crazy, almost fatal accident on the highway. And so I'm just laying there in the hospital and with my leg broken and all these things broken and just looking at my mom when she came to the hospital. I'm like, this is just a terrible time. I just got basically fired from my job. Now I don't have a car. Now I'm sitting here in the hospital before my birthday, no job prospects. And I think 3 days later, I got a call from a school that wanted to interview me, and I hobbled over there in my wheelchair and then crutches to go toward the school with them for that interview. And I ended up getting that job. And that was the school that I stayed at for around the next 5 or 6 years, the school that I did the mission trip program with and everything. And earlier, I forgot what you had said, but you said something that like clicked in my mind as far as something else I like corely believe in and value is that we always end up where we're supposed to be. Even if we take some crazy route, even if it wasn't like what was intended, so to speak, I think everyone ends up exactly where they're supposed to be, exactly at the right time. So that's how I felt in that moment when I got the job offer from the new school, even though I had no car, even though I had a broken leg and all these things, I was just like, it all worked out in the end.
It's a belief in fate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a belief in change is constant and change is always going to occur. And how we respond and embrace and roll with it, our life and our choice. And that's what we can control. And how we choose to control it decides whether or not we accept with where we are right now.
That is
or
so
where
true.
we're going, right? It's really cool to hear that. First, it's not really cool to hear you were in a car accident. I should say that. It's really cool to hear that as a new teacher, you're challenging curriculum and that you're ruffling feathers and, causing a stir in your first placement, because that's bold. That's very brave to do. It's, again, rooted back to an earth and wanting to know that core value and that why. You didn't know the why, and that's probably where the challenges come from. You didn't know why they were teaching the curriculum they were teaching. You didn't know why they were doing it the way they were doing it. Those lived experiences, and without directly hearing from the person that wrote the curriculum about this is why I wrote it this way, we'll never have those answers. And I think wherever you go, anytime that there's something you're supposed to follow, if you don't know why you're doing it, how are you going to get buy-in? How are you going to commit and be motivated? Right?
Yeah, why is big for me, definitely.
Yeah. And it's so apparent that the why is so big for you when you talk to me here. So I do want to transition that a little bit. There's so many things we can unpack, and I can already tell, Anna, that we're going to need like 5 episodes here of connecting and just unpacking this. And so I look forward to our next 10 years as we unpack with each other here. But everything you're sharing, the whole idea, before we get into change process, everything that you're sharing about wanting to support, wanting to help, needing to know the why behind things, and even your own background on challenging curriculum because you didn't understand it fully on why they were doing things the way they were doing it. How did that shape your pedagogical practice and how you started to deliver instruction in your classrooms?
I think it's part of the reason why I always try to explain to my students, we need to do this because X. And even if that's something so real as, for example, for my seniors, like this past semester, I was working with seniors and they had to write an essay, MLA format, all these things. And I literally told them, I was like, look, I know it's your last 30 days of school and the last thing you want to do is write an essay. For those of y'all that are not college bound, you'll probably never write an essay again for the rest of your life. But the point is right now, just learning the skills that you need to complete this task to get you to graduate, to lead you to the next step of your life. And also learning resiliency. Even like when I gave them silent reading, any students to give them silent reading to do, I explain to them, like I have a whole slide on this builds your reading stamina. Even though reading is a hobby and I don't expect you to love it after reading for 30 minutes in the class, I don't expect you to pick it over, say, another hobby like crochet or a sport or whatever. It's important to at least try to get this exposure to different literacy opportunities and to build that stamina you need to take these standardized tests that are required by law for you to take to move on to the next grade level. So I've always felt the need to explain to students, even when it means explaining something that they don't necessarily want to hear, but I believe in keeping it real. So I think that definitely shaped a lot of that aspect of it. Always wanted just to explain things to kids because I feel like too often in education, kids are just told like, you need to do it because I said so. And I posted a TikTok video not too long ago that ruffled some feathers when I was trying to explain that, especially now for this junior generation of students, like that doesn't cut it. Like you can't just stand up in a group of 30 Gen Z kids and say, you're doing this because I said you're doing this. That doesn't work anymore, and it shouldn't have worked in the first place. So that's part of it. And I think the other part is I truly believe that all content I call them my 4 R's. I think all content should be in reach, relatable / relevant, rigorous, of course, and should always have a little bit of razzle dazzle. So obviously not every lesson every day in the classroom is going to be razzly dazzly and full of fun and sparkles. But I believe in, taking the time to truly think about how can I make this more relevant and engaging for the students? How could we add a little bit of fun? Especially as a high school teacher, I always fight for fun. I always fight for, they're just bigger kids, we took away their recess after elementary school. We took away their like playtime. And in high school, like everything is so serious now. And I'm like, they're still just kids at the end of the day. And they deserve to have fun and have free time and just laugh and be silly. And so I always try to make time for those types of activities, or that just like for the fun of it, time in the classroom. And again, it's definitely not an everyday thing, because some days we're sitting there writing an essay because we need to do that and we need to build those skills and that resiliency. But some days on a Friday, we're going to go outside. Or the last 2 years, I had an Easter egg hunt for my high school students, and they were running around like little kids and doing like the little sack races like little kids, because they are just bigger kids. So I think those two things are definitely shaped by like my thinking and my values.
And they love that. They probably love all the little kid activities. I teach junior, senior high right now too. And one of their favorite things that they always ask for is, can we go to the playground? Can we go to the playground and play grounders? That would be so fun, because that's what we did when we were a kid. And we often forget as adults that play is so important. Even play as adults is so important. You made a comment earlier in that statement where you said, explaining the why to kids that don't always want to know the why, it's needed. That's actually the most important time to do it, is when people don't care about the why, they don't know the why, they're not motivated to do the why. They need to know it, because that's how they're going to start to establish some ownership and maybe get some intrinsic motivation from it. Your 4 Rs, is that you, or is that coming from somewhere else?
I mean, I don't know if it exists somewhere else, but I thought of it myself, because for my business, like my 3 pillars are empathy, engagement, ELA, education. And then when I broke those down even further, I came up with the 4 Rs, because I'm an English
Nice.
teacher and I love
Yeah.
alliteration. So everything has to match. But yeah, so I just
Can I
made up
get
the
you to
four
say
Rs.
them to me one more time here?
Yeah, so its content should be in reach, relatable/relevant, rigorous, and always have a little bit of razzle dazzle. Razzle dazzle is definitely like my word. My friends sometimes make fun of me. My friend, kind of sort of teacher, she made one of those little friendship bracelets that say razzle dazzle on them, because I'm always like, ooh, it's a little razzle dazzle. It's like my little catchphrase sometimes.
No, I like that. I think that's really cool. The only time I've ever heard the R's used is the 3 R's of reduce, reuse, recycle. So
So
to hear them in education and the way you're using it, and I like razzle dazzle. I think that's a lot of fun. For me, I would go to the analytical side and said, that's Bloom's taxonomy of creating, engaging, analyzing, and going deeper into something. You're just calling it razzle dazzle. We're
yep.
adding some flair to what we're trying to do. We're bringing fun and play back into those situations. So
I think of like
no, go for
virtually
it.
throwing confetti at the kids. That's what I feel
There we
like I'm
go.
mentally
Yeah.
doing. Just throw
Yeah.
them. And sometimes they're like, Miss Prez, you're crazy. Rolling eyes. They're not always going to admit that they like it. But most of them, they buy in.
And that's it right there. Hey, it's when you do something that's so fun and so out there, it makes people uncomfortable because they're not used to it anymore. And at some point along your journey of being a kid to a teenager dies.
Yeah.
And we forget that's okay. And those become the most powerful moments for those kids when you make it fun and you spruce it up a little and give it that razzle dazzle flair.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
that's something I definitely tell my clients too, when they are going to try something new like that in the classroom. Even if the first day it doesn't work, it's the repetition of it. If your students get used to this idea of, oh, okay, it's okay to be a little silly in here because this is going to be something that we're used to doing, or we're going to do consistently, then they'll eventually like get used to it. It's like anything, honestly. Like even I think of like seminars, whether that's a Socratic seminar or a Paideia seminar or whatever. Sometimes the first time you introduce a seminar in a class with students, it's like silent. It's like pulling teeth. It's like very uncomfortable and awkward. And I remember even telling my own students, that's okay. So by the second and third time we do this, it's going to feel a little easier. It's going to feel a little bit better. And I think anything in the terms of being in the classroom and activities and things like that get better with time. We just have to, as teachers, have the resiliency to keep going even when it's a little awkward at first.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's such a nice segue to go from talking about earth and core values, resilience, perseverance, this drive to adapt and when faced with adversity.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much like the wind that I talk about, and how we go with the wind and go with the flow of things. And it connects with water and implementing change and these change dynamics that we talk about. So you, again, first year ends, you're faced with so much adversity, jobless, moving, in a car accident, and then 3 days later, job interview. That's a lot of change for somebody in 4 or 5 day span here. But even beyond that, you're also rooted in how we roll with change and persevering. So for anybody listening, I would love to hear how you're doing this and how you're rolling with adversity, because you've done it so well.
Yeah, I think I owe a lot of that to my mom. She raised me to be very strong. My entire family is like a long line of very strong women. And we have this, I'm Colombian. I have to make the statement of, or like the distinction of Colombia, South America, because since I moved to South Carolina, where I currently am, I know that there's a Colombia, South Carolina, so people get confused. But yeah, so I'm from originally Colombia, South America, and there's this saying in Spanish that says, Colombiano no se vara, and that basically means like a Colombian person like does not get stuck. And my mom raised me with that idea and that kind of like mantra, if anything, of it doesn't matter what you got to do, like you keep going. She also raised me like simultaneously with this idea of it doesn't matter if you're scrubbing toilets or the CEO, you're going to do a good job. And so it's the idea of like hard work no matter what and making it no matter what. So I think I definitely owe all that to her, because that's just how I was raised. There was no other choice.
How do you action that? You talk about what it means, but how does that actually drive you, and how do you action it?
I always feel like even during times of adversity, I might sit down and cry and have a bad day or let myself like wallow in self-pity for a little while. But then the next day I'm like, all right, let's make a little list and a little action plan and let's see what we can do to keep it moving. Even, for example, take COVID. I told my kids, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And then, as we all know, it was shut down the entire rest of the year. And, having to then do classes on Zoom and figure it out. And that really pushed me to figure out how to keep the R's, for example, even online. And I remember doing crazy things like having a entire back wall of balloons just to get the kids to want to come to class. Or I drove around the neighborhood to deliver donuts to students who had won like a competition just to keep them engaged until the end of the year. And I just knew that stuff was hard and it was weird and it was uncomfortable, like I said before, but you just have to figure it out. And so I've always been pretty creative. So thankfully there's that. I'm pretty good with coming up with things in the last minute or funny things or just like anything. I have that creativity in me. So just trusting that I'll figure out a plan. And then sometimes you got to ask for help. Like that's a big thing. That's something that like growing up was like, nope. You don't tell anybody what's going on. You don't ask for help. So those are, generational things that like I've worked really hard to change, but I've learned that also just asking for help, whether that's just like a brainstorming session with someone else or just like letting someone else know this is what I got going on. Like, can you help me? So I think those two things is like how I implement, especially when it comes to hard things and just being open to change.
And for help at some point was a faux pas and you should never do it, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do. And the idea of collaboration and two minds can equate so much power compared to just one mind, right?
Yeah.
Colombia, hey, so are you from the capital? Is that Bogota?
Bogota? No. So I was actually born in New York, but I have family in Medellin, which is the city of eternal springtime in Colombia. It's beautiful. It's my favorite place to visit. And my mom is from Cali, which is like more on the coast Caribbean side. And then I've been to Bogota, the capital. And it's funny because every city in Colombia is comparable to a state here. So Bogota is very much like New York. Like you have the tall buildings, it's very city life. Everyone's like in a suit and like working and walking fast. And as far as weather, it's like mostly cold there. And then Medellin, to me, is like a Cali. Everyone's so nice and friendly and the weather is always perfect. And see mountains there, but it's also just like a fun time. And then Cali, where my mom is from, Cartagena, those are like the beachy areas that you can compare to Miami. And so every city there is literally like going to a different state here.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
The only people that I know from Colombia are tennis players. Are you a tennis player?
Definitely not. I have not one
Yeah.
athletic bone in my body. Not one.
That's totally fair. And if you did, it probably got broken in that crash. Sorry, I don't mean to say that. Is that too soon?
No,
Or
that's
no?
fine.
There we go. So thank you for sharing your story so far. This has been incredible. I just love hearing the lived experiences from everybody and how they roll with things. And what you just talked about with adversity and how you're handling change, it's so much like wind and water and how I equate those. Specifically wind and when you're faced with adversity, because when you put something in front of wind, it finds a way around it. It finds that crack. It finds that little way to push through. I've been fighting a draft in my house for like the last 2 years that I just can't seal because wind is finding a way through. And you speak so much and that there's so much relation between what you're talking about and that wind, because wind is within us and it's that ability to push and drive and keep going and keep blowing, right? When faced with all of these challenges left and center. Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful to share and put out there. How has all of this shaped the aspirations that you're doing outside of just your classroom teaching?
Like as far as my business?
Yeah, I'm trying to set us up to go to the business.
I think part of it is, again, I love to help people. And even though I say that I'm like on my teacher sabbatical, which by the way, I believe every teacher should actually get one, but this is my self-prescribed teacher sabbatical. I left the classroom at the end of last year. I ended up going back this year to cover my friend's maternity leave, but like now for real, I'm out of the classroom for a while. I don't know if it'll be my last stint in the classroom. Like I do want to go back eventually, but I know that I needed like some time to just focus on me. I've been through a lot and I just needed, a little break. And it was definitely nothing to do with the kids. I love the kids and I miss them. That's why I went back this semester. But I just need a little break. But I also found that through starting this business that I can reach more students by reaching more teachers. And by helping more teachers, I'm helping even more students that I could ever possibly help. I'm an empath by nature and an HSP, which means like highly sensitive person. So I experience emotions like to a degree. Like if you're mad here, I'm like mad here. But the same thing, like if you're sad here, I'm sad here. And I take on people's emotions too. And on the plus side, that means like I'm very attuned to people's needs and people's emotions. Like I could tell from the look that, or just walking in a room, I can tell if something's wrong. I can feel the energy. But the downside of that is that it takes a really big toll. And as teaching is not just going in there teaching a lesson, teaching has a mental toll, has an emotional toll. And these are the things that sometimes make it unsustainable for teachers, especially if you're a human who just like takes on people's energies and emotions more than most. So I sometimes felt like I couldn't do more or like enough because I just felt like really bogged down by all the emotions. But I've loved finding that I can still, like I said earlier, reach other students, even if I can't physically be there, by helping other teachers not just see their own curriculum dreams come true, so to speak, but also be motivated to be in the classroom and look at things a different way and look at interactions with students a different way and try new strategies, even if they might be a little scarier or what at first, but just feel reinvigorated. And I always think of like the simulator, like coming back to life. And I always tell my clients, that's what I feel like, or that's what I want to help you feel like. I just got these paddles and I was like, clear. And I like brought you back to life because we don't get a lot of support in education as teachers. And it's easy for the joy to die down after so many things happen, after COVID, after administration issues, or whatever the case may be. Like, it's so easy to get bogged down. And unless you have someone like there giving you a hand to help pull you back up, it's really hard. And I think that's why a lot of teachers just drone on and on in the education system, like year after year, but they feel like zombies because there's just no, like the joy has left and they don't know how to get it back. I think a lot of when I first started helping teachers and started seeing that I could help more students this way, it gave me more ideas on what other things can I do for teacher clients, and not just make resources, but actually coach them, have workshops, which I do like once a month on like different things tied to curriculum or just being a teacher. And I just love helping other teachers and also like building like an online community of teachers, because teaching can be very isolating. I was just talking to another teacher about this today.
That's so true. Yep.
Yeah, like you wouldn't think that. And I think that's something that no one like warns you about out, but either number one, you're stuck in your classroom all day because that's just like the job, right? And if you maybe got 20 minutes of lunch, like you're running to go to the bathroom, running back to your classroom, and you're around children all day, which is fun, but there's no like human, like adult interaction rather. Or sometimes you're stuck in a school where if you do go to the teacher's lounge on your planning period or for lunch, it's like a very negative space. And
Yep.
that's not healthy either. So then you choose to then go have lunch by yourself. And again, you're isolated and there's not enough like spaces where teachers can come together and have these creative moments full of like support and help and brainstorming or just encouragement or just not like negative venting all the time, even though like you need to vent sometimes, but just uplifting each other and finding solutions and PD that's not like making you eye roll and things like that. So I'm like on a mission to be that support system for other teachers.
That is so rooted in your earth, Anna. It's not even funny. That's your core value. We talked about
Yeah.
the support you want to give to people, the fun you want to bring people, the opportunity. Makes sense that's where you went with it because that's your core value.
Yeah.
Right? This question might answer itself when I ask it to you, but how did you go about taking the risk of getting this started?
That's a funny story. So it was COVID year. We were still shut down. No, I was back in the classroom. Like we were allowed back in the classroom, but it was still like masks and space and stuff like that. So it was still like the awkward like year right after. And I was going through a lot. I felt like stuck. I had a personal story. I had a boyfriend at the time, and I had just found out that like he was cheating on me and like this whole thing. And I was just like over everything in like a dark place. And I was like, I need something to get out of this.
That's the wind in you. You were pushing. You were
Yeah, I
pushing.
was like, I
Yeah.
need something, and so I online, I would see my friend, my real life friend now, teacher, was promoting like a small group coaching program about bringing your teaching ideas to life, like by creating your own resources and posting them on TPT and all these different things. And I was like, fuck it, I'll do it because I'm always just like spontaneous like that. So I joined her program and she took you at that time. She has a lot more programs now, but at that time it was just like teaching you how to create your own resources that you could sell for extra income as well, and then also create your own website and those types of things. So I started, and then I just literally like dove into creating resources. And since I love to create just like on Canva or like anything, I'm a creator. So I love to create things. I would just spend hours and hours creating resources and making new things and making new content for class and thinking of ways I could use it in my classroom, but then help other teachers too. It gave me like a funnel for joy and like an escape from like everything else that was going on. And funny enough, it ended up like completely changing my life because this is about to be my third year of the business, but I consider it my second year because I wasn't taking the business side too seriously the first year. It was just more like for fun. But this has helped me, leave the classroom as far as like financially and just like look at a different side of education. And like I said, it changed my life as far as all the different people I've met through it and been able to help through it and just it's put me in a different space. I have these wild, crazy dreams of one day opening up my own school. And this kind of,
Not as
I feel
wild
like,
as you think. It's not as wild as you think.
I don't know, I've read a lot of like
Yeah.
books about like people opening schools. So I'm like, maybe one day, but I also want to
Yeah.
be an author. Like I want to write books again to help teenagers that are going through a hard time. And there's just so many things that like big wild dreams that I hope, but I feel like I'm on the right path to it through the business.
Your earth is like I said it when within the first 10 minutes, you're so
Yeah.
rooted in it and it's driving these decisions and it's making the risk easy for you because when you really think about it, when you're so connected back to that why you're doing things, it's not a matter of should I do it, it's a matter of how do I do it.
Yeah.
And all of these adversity pieces that are coming back at you and your wind and you shared your tragic story of this boyfriend who's clearly missing out. How you're pushing through and you're finding a way and you're making a difference and you're persevering because that's your wind being connected inside you with the earth that's inside you and being that driving force. You're not moving like a little gust. You're moving like a hurricane through this and you're taking things by storm and you're taking charge of what you really believe in and you're trying to help instill that to others. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Looking back on what you know now and through the system you're creating and the coaching and the collaboration you've got to do, would it have influenced your teaching in the classroom in any way?
My business?
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, definitely. Because the more I would create for the business, the more I wanted to create for my own classroom. And I've always liked to try new things, like I said, in the classroom anyway, but it gave me a different not maybe a different perspective, but it gave me even more motivation to try even more things in the classroom just to see if it worked. If it did work, okay, could I maybe help other teachers implement this in their classrooms too? Or if it didn't work, okay, back to the drawing board, what can I do instead? Or even what lessons from it not working that I could also share online to my teacher community online. So it definitely was half and half, playing both sides, but in a way that like they were both connected. And then I would be so for real with my kids. I'd be like, so I just made this new resource. What do you guys think of it? Or hey, what colors do you like better? Or for the backgrounds of something I couldn't decide on. So silly
Yeah.
things like that. They knew that this was something I was working on and that sometimes I would use their feedback to help me out for my business as well. So I like that they got to be a part of it.
That's so cool. So you alluded to it a little bit in terms of wanting to start a school. Is that your future goal? Is that what you're aspiring to do? What does your next 5, 10, 20 years look like for you?
Well, I definitely want to get married and have kids. That's still on the radar somewhere, like as far as like personal life. But I do, and I called it wild and crazy dream opening a school because it's not something that I'm necessarily intentionally working towards right now, but in my future, I could see it. I just wouldn't know like where to put it on the timeline. Right now, I really want to publish a book soon, a YA book. Get that on my next, hopefully next thing that I want done. But
You can do it. You can do it.
I have no hoping, but I'm just continuing to reach other ELA teachers that are seeking mentorship, continue to grow this business. I'm so excited because this summer I'm hosting a program for ELA teachers called Way Camp. And so it's like teaching them everything about covering writing standards and skills in their classroom with the 4 R's that I talked about, but like also summer camp vibes, like the Parent Trap type summer camp vibes, like all
There we go.
virtual.
Yeah.
So just, and again, you're going to say, that's your earth, Anna, but it is.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. Yeah.
I created this because thinking about my first year teaching as an ELA teacher, I did not know what I was doing. I did not know one thing about what I was doing. And even like my first couple of years, as I started to figure it out, I just still wished I had some type of other support system. It took me like, I don't want, if I can help another teacher from not having to struggle for so long with trying to just figure things out, like that would be my goal. So I'm excited for that. And just like more programs like that, I want to make like an entire ELA curriculum embedded with the razzle dazzle that I talk about. And those would be like the most immediate ones. And yeah, in the future, open up a school, high school, by the way, of course, my high school babies.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much the main ones, I'd say.
Those are so cool. And I hope you get there so badly. And then, like I
Thank you.
said, when we do episode 2, or I guess version 2 of this in a couple of years, we'll be there. We'll be there. That book will be out. I just know it will.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate
can you take a minute for me and over your right shoulder, that quote that's there? Yeah.
This one
I love it.
says, be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.
I love that. There's our fire.
Yep.
There's your wind, right? That's your being fearless. You talked about pushing through, taking that risk, having it rooted in your value. That quote that you have on your wall right behind you is your value. I think that's so powerful. I found a way to sneak it in there, even though you called me out for wanting to bring it back in there.
No, that's
So,
fine.
Anna, if people want to get a hold of you or sign up for your camp, what's the best way for them to go about getting a hold of you and being in touch?
Yeah, I'm simply Anna P on Instagram and TikTok. So simply.anna.p on Instagram and TikTok. And then my website is just www.simplyannap.com, or NAP, like my friend Ty likes to make fun of me for. But yeah, the website, or they can also just email me, Anna@simplyannap.com. I love getting emails from teachers and just reaching out, or even if they DM me, I'll always send back voice notes. And I just like connecting with other educators in the space that also believe in putting students first and just growing in the profession.
Just a good vibe that wants to be out there. And Anna, ANA, correct?
Yes, one
Yeah.
N, not like
One
Anna.
N. There we go. There we go. Hey, before we wrap up here, this is my favorite part of every episode I get to film. And it's the hardest part for everybody that has to be a guest, because I sit here, put you on the spot and say, you get 30 seconds to a minute to just talk to the world. And you get to give any piece of advice to the world that you feel like they need to hear right now in this moment, what advice are you giving out there to anybody listening?
I think whether it's a person that's young or older, a teenager, an adult, I would say try to find your passion and live passionately. I don't think enough people live passionately. Enough people take the time to find their true passions and their true joys. And it like connects back to this quote about pursue what sets your soul on fire. Find that passion and live passionately and do everything passionately, because otherwise, what's the point? And even if I said this the other day too, that's connected to like your joy and your happiness. And I firmly believe, especially as someone, who's big on mental health and has lived with depression, I think that you should chase happiness for the rest of your life, even if it takes the rest of your life. So, and then share that happiness with other people.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to The Elemental Educator. Our aim is to illuminate optimal educational practices on a global scale. And second, we want to shine a light on the expertise and knowledge that Tyler brings to educational institutions. He's not just a talking head. He's a practicing educator, a school principal, armed with a master's in educational administration, and on the brink of completing his doctorate. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Elemental Educator. And to contact us, fire off an email. See what I did there? Fire off. Okay. Send an email to Tyler at elementaleducator.com. See you next time on The Elemental Educator.